Welcome back, football fans, to another episode of Necessary Roughness right here on the Bite Size Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, John Boyd, joined by my co-hosts tonight, Nick and Zach. We've got a really fun show, I think, to get to here. All three of us have prepared our top 10 power rankings. Then we're going to review some games from last week, and we had a couple really interesting storylines play out, as well as these two guys' teams having a pretty compelling football game, as ugly as it got. But we'll get to all of that after I find out how the heck you guys are doing. Was it last week we did Wednesday?
Yeah, I think
It's
it was
been,
right?
yeah, it's been six days. Nick, you're coming off a victory. How are you feeling?
You know, personally wise, I'm good. Football wise, we'll get into it.
Okay. Football wise, TBD. Zach, how you doing? Well, Zach, how are you doing personally? We got a pretty good grasp of football wise, I think.
Personally, I'm doing good. I was able to get a couple of steals on some really nice sports cards. I got a Mac Jones rookie autograph for like $25. And then I got a Josh Jacobs rookie patch autograph for $14. So we're doing good on that end. Football wise, I'm doing better than people might assume. Even though my team's like 1-5, but last week was good, or much better than I thought it would be. Aside from the PI, that really pissed me off.
Yeah, it was at least interesting, and I'm sure we'll beat the PI to death in our second segment. Excuse my voice and appearance and general cognitive ability this evening. I'm a little bit under the weather, but I'm going to be teeing these two up for what I think are a lot of interesting topics. I'll try not to talk quite too much. And with that in mind, Nick, I'm going to start. You know what, Zach? Let's start with you, and then we'll go to Nick's, because I think we will have. Well, I know we will have some interesting differences here. But kind of talk us through your thought process, kind of down the line here. So you've still got Niners #1 coming off the loss. Chiefs at 4, or excuse me, Eagles at 4 coming off the loss. Dolphins back up to 2. What was kind of your thought process separating those 5-1 teams at the top?
So for me, it's kind of like with the 49ers. I know obviously they just lost to the Browns, who have a phenomenal defense, but they were also without Christian McCaffrey for most of it, going down with that injury. And then I think they were out without Debo that game too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they were missing some pretty big pieces of their offense, especially for a quarterback like Brock Purdy, who I feel is a quarterback that needs like those offensive weapons to really like get it going. I think McCaffrey, they said, might be out for 2 weeks, they're thinking. So they might slide next week. But just coming off of that, I think that they're still the righteous #1. That being said, moving the Eagles down to #4, they haven't been spectacular all year. They've been like able to win close games, but they haven't really been like too crazy impressive. They've also been beating up on bad teams, I feel like, for most of the beginning of the year. So that's why I dropped them down to 4. They've been pretty competent, but it's just, I don't know. I feel like a team like the Dolphins is much more complete than the Eagles in terms of offense, and the Dolphins' offense or defense is finally starting to like click. And the Chiefs, by the metrics, have a top 10 defense in the league. And then you have Patrick Mahomes, who, in my opinion, is going down as the best quarterback of all time, obviously. Travis Kelce, Pacheco, things like that. So that's just like where I have the top 4. The Bills I have to give respect to, even though they've lost 2 games where they should have won. Their other games, they've looked pretty dominant, except against the Giants. But I just don't know what that was. But I still have them top 5 just because of the firepower they bring. Also being without 3 of their main defensive starters, and still being able to pull out a win. Lions, I might have a little too low, but I think around 6 is like fair. Anywhere from like the 3 to 7 range. I feel like they're in an interchangeable spot. The Cowboys just haven't really looked great. They were able to sneak one against the Chargers, which was good. Ravens and Browns, that one was really a toss-up for me just because of how electric the Browns defense has been. I just feel like the Ravens have a more, again, complete offense and have much more upside than the Browns have. Then I put the Jags in there just because, again, they have a high-powered offense. They've looked good. That's basically what it came down to for me. But
Yeah, like I said, yours and mine are very similar, actually. So I'll jump to Nick here in between, and light us up in the comments, by the way, if we left a team off, you think, or you have any qualms with our rankings here. We'd love to have you join the conversation. Let's jump over to Nick's here, and we'll tick these along the bottom of the screen. So, Nick, yeah, there's a couple of pretty interesting things I thought on this list.
Mhm.
But start with telling us what puts the Dolphins over the Niners for you, especially being a fan of the one team that beat them this year. You've kind of seen them play their worst game, a little closer than other viewers, I feel like, as a fan. So, but what kind of separates them for you from San Fran and gives them that top spot?
You know, it's power rankings. And so we're here at this point of the season, and a lot of teams so far have just not looked as good as I anticipated them to look. A lot of teams look really bad, and there's really just like a fine line between these like 2 to 3 teams, and then everyone else seems to be a bit of a drop off. Miami seems to just continue to put up points. They'll put up 35 to 70, whatever, every week. Other than the Bills game, and like, I gotta keep the same energy if I'm gonna say as a Bills fan. Well, the Jets game week 1 was just that was an anomaly. That was weird. Like, I don't know what happened there. Well, then Miami fans can say the same thing about the Bills game. They could say, that was kind of just, we kind of got beat. Like, it was a weird game for us. But then they go right back and they, continue to slaughter other teams. So, I think that if I'm going to say something like, as a Bills fan, that Jets game was just weird and like, that's not us, then it's fair enough for Miami fans to say the same thing about the Bills game and say, that's not us. Look at the other 5 games, because we've put up points upon points in all other games. They've never, had to like squeak one out. They've played really well. They continue to beat teams. They did what I expected them to. Yes, Carolina goes up 14-0. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, okay, maybe no, like, we're much better than you. We're gonna start, humming. That's what a good teams do. So I just think the Finns, like, right now, like, listen, by week 12 they might be at 7. I don't know, but right now I think it's fair to put them at number 1. They look the most dominant, especially with keep saying, like the 49ers, McCaffrey, Debo out. It's gonna affect stuff. Miami doesn't really have anybody out, and I'm impressed by their offense. Their defense, I don't know if it's clicking. I mean, they're destroyed by Buffalo. They're giving up 21 to Carolina. That's not good. But I just think that they look the best. I don't know. It's when you think about like the top 3, I got Miami, 49ers, Lions. If you think about those teams, then Philly lost to the Jets. I thought the 49ers, they didn't lose. Like, basically the Jets beat Philly, I thought that the 49ers lost that game instead of Cleveland winning that game. They had a 40-yarder to win the game. That goes through the uprates. We're talking about the Niners being 6-0 and still at the top of my rankings. But, they do lose that game. They let P.J. Walker do a whole lot more than they should have ever let him do. And, yeah, I got Miami at number 1. I think that at this point in the season, they look the best. The 49ers with the injuries. Then I got Detroit. They're 5-1. Give them some credit. They're going to win the division handily. The Eagles losing that game, to the Jets, legitimately, Jalen Hurts got by that Jets defense, as did Josh Allen, as did Patrick Mahomes, as will Justin Herbert. The Jets defense is something else. That's why I have them at 10. I think that a lot of people are going to be surprised to see the Jets in the top 10, but they're going to be in every single game. And this team is not about the quarterback. This team is about the defense, and this team is about winning games in the trenches. So I really like that about the Jets. I got the Jags over the Bills. I mean, they beat us. What am I supposed to say? And then the Cowboys, nice win last night, and the Ravens. I was going between the Ravens, Browns, Steelers, the whole damn division. The Bengals. A couple of friends at work were saying Bengals. I was like, yeah, but you can't really give it to them now, right? I mean, they've won 2 straight, but a 3-3 clip. To put them at 9 would be a little high. You got to give it to the Ravens. They are leading the division at this time. So I think it's a fair list. Obviously Dolphins 49ers are interchangeable, but I think they're 1 and 2, regardless. And then the Eagles, injuries with them. Jalen Carter's out right now, but Hassan Reddick looked really good. They'll be fine. They just Jalen Hurts needs to start to get away from the deep ball. And obviously, the new OC change has definitely had a impact on them thus far. But as a Bills fan, Josh Allen with Dable, he had to go through his growing pains as well. I'm sure he'll get back to the way he was last year, later in the year. It's a long season, so I have confidence in him. But yeah, that's my list.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I agree with a lot of your reasoning there too. I think you have the Jags at 6.
Mm-hmm. Their defense is actually really good.
Bills at 7. Their run defense in particular has been really good. Campbell and Williams at the cornerback spots have been great.
Josh Allen for the Jaguars is a star. He breaks games, man.
Defense, Josh Allen, he's got over 20 pressures. I think he has 24 pressures.
He's fantastic.
He's been great in that Eagles game too, without Sauce and their other top corner too. So
we're missing their top 2 corners for that game, and
So the Eagles going up against no Sauce, and was it DJ Reed that was out as well, or?
Yep.
Okay, so they have no Sauce and they have no DJ Reed, but the Eagles have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, and they're able to muster. How many points did they get? 14.
14. It was 20-14.
Come on, man. That's the Jets defense. By the way, this year, the reason that the points are down a lot is because pressures are beating the O-lines. The O-lines, you can't name a good O-line this season. Obviously they're the good ones. The Eagles and the Niners have good ones. Everybody's hurt, though. So if you think about an O-line that is fantastic top to bottom, no injuries, I cannot think of one. So the reason that there's no points that are being scored other than Miami is because the pressures of these incredible defensive players like TJ Watt, Micah Parsons, and everybody else, everybody's getting to the quarterback. So the quarterback has no time. That has never happened really. So that's why, this start of the year has been really interesting just because quarterbacks had to learn how to not go for the deep ball. Josh Allen's had trouble. Jalen Hurts is having trouble with it. It's really hard for these guys to, instead of just go for the things that they know how to go to, they go with the safe route, the Tom Brady type plays. And it's very hard, and that's why the points are down. So, yeah, a lot of pressures this year.
Yeah, Lane Johnson missed some time in this game. Jack Driscoll came in and gave up 6 pressures.
Yeah.
Over the course of the game, too. A lot of it was Bryce Huff, undrafted guy who's starting to pop for the Jets. Quinnen was obviously wreaking havoc. Quincy had a big game. Quincy Williams, who's a blast to watch. He's just a fucking missile.
Yes.
But yeah, let's jump we'll jump into mine last here, and I'll go through pretty quick, like I mentioned. So Zach and I have the exact same top 8.
Wow.
Let's go.
And we did not.
We had the exact same 10, just 9 and 10 were changed.
Yes. Do you have Jags Browns?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the same top 10.
I have Browns Jags.
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah. So, like I said, a lot of the same reasoning too. So I'll be brusque. But I've got Niners 1, Dolphins 2. I think those are 1A, 1B as well. You know, I think they're pretty interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
But the Niners have just been they're just so deep as far as like playmakers go, to the point where, yeah, like you're sitting there and you're like, oh shit, they're going to be out without Christian McCaffrey, who's arguably the best back in the league right now. Debo is questionable. You know, Trent is one they can't really get back from. But it sounds like that, you know, Shanahan has a positive outlook on that little injury as well. But you know, even at that, you're losing McCaffrey and Debo for this game, and you think about, you still got Brandon Ayuk, who's been ridiculous this season. Probably an overall, certainly a better receiver than Debo Samuel in a vacuum. Doesn't bring the same array of different utilizations that Debo does, that can really throw a defense. But he's been awesome, and especially after the catch as well. Kittle obviously coming off that big 3 touchdown game the week prior. And then you get into like the Jawan Jennings, who's really good in small doses, but like even just, you know, Purdy work in the pocket with if that O-line's healthy, if you've got Trent. I think if you look at Ayuk, Kittle, and then Jawan Jennings and a smattering of other guys that'll probably fill in, like that still feels like a top half of the league passing attack.
Yeah.
Just Kittle, Ayuk, and Shanahan scheming up for Purdy. So I don't know. Like I think that's the main factor for me with San Fran, and the Dolphins are similar in that respect. But we know Devin Achan's going to miss 4 weeks now. I think, you know, if you get a Tyreek Hill injury, that really just massively swings the way this offense functions. I feel like the 49ers can withstand a little bit more in that regard. And I like their defense a lot more than Miami's, not necessarily from a talent perspective, but certainly from a coaching perspective, and a scheme perspective this year. The Chiefs I have at 3. A lot of that has to do with their defense. It's been ridiculous. Trent McDuffie's been unbelievable. Snead's been good. On the other side, Karlaftis is sort of coming into his own. And then obviously you got Chris Jones. Nick Bolton is probably the 3rd best off-ball linebacker in the league right now, behind Fred and Roquan. You know, you could probably make an argument for a few other guys, DeMario, whatever. But for my money, it's Nick Bolton. And you know, the rest of that Chiefs front has been playing pretty solid. They even did really in Chris Jones's absence. So that's a lot of it for me with the Chiefs. The same thing as you guys with the Eagles. You know, just the talent obviously is the same, and it's in its top end. They've just been kind of lackluster this year. And the Bills I still have at 5 over the Lions and others, mostly because the Bills are the only team I've seen like blow out and thoroughly dismantle another good team.
Yeah.
So like I feel like you've seen some lower lows with the Bills, and you can see signs of lower lows with the Bills than these other 4 squads. But I think the highs are just as high as any other team when everything's clicking and Josh is dialed and the defense is playing well and everyone's healthy. The Matt Milano injury really hurts. But is it Terrell Bernard?
Terrell Bernard you were just talking about off-ball backers that are top 3. TB is going to be top 5 very soon. I promise.
Dude, he's been really good. I was You know what it was is Edmonds kept trying to pop out of my mouth when I said Terrell.
Well, now Edmonds is in Chicago, obviously, but Dorian Williams is the rookie that we drafted to kind of replace him or whatever.
Who was sick coming out.
Like Edmonds in that Giants game. Like, I'm not saying Edmonds is so great. I honestly never really liked him too much. Like, he's a good player. I never thought he was that great. I mean, when he went to Chicago, people were like acting like he's a star. But Dorian Williams, like, I think he can fit that role of what Tremaine was doing for us. And Terrell Bernard, his breakout game was Washington. Obviously, he was like the defensive player of the week, and he's just been on a trajectory. He's awesome. So we're gonna continue watching TB. He's fantastic.
Yeah, another guy just kind of coming out of the woodwork on that defense, and making a huge impact. Yeah, kind of the same thing here. I snuck the Browns in for that same reason, and mostly just so I could talk about them a little bit. The offensive line is still great, but this defense has finally come together. And the personnel isn't much different from last year or even the year before. But it's probably might be the best secondary in the league right now. When you talk Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, and Martin Emerson, and the way Grant Delpit's been playing, he's been playing out of his absolute skull. And then the front has been awesome. Maurice Hurst has kind of started to resurge a little bit. Zadarius and Myles Garrett, even by Myles Garrett standards, is having a great year. So they're just really tough to deal with. Here are some quick stats on Cleveland this year. So they're allowing 200 yards per game. That's first in the league. The next best is 260. And there has not been a team to finish the season allowing they're on pace to allowing 200 yards or less per game since the 1970 Vikings, the Purple People Eaters.
Yep.
So that's wild, especially the way the game has progressed, and more passing and more points and more yards and all that. They're first in DVOA, fifth in points, just 15 a game. First in yards per play allowed, fourth in rush yards per game, fourth in yards per carry, first in passing yards allowed, which is only at 121.4 per game. Passing yards.
Wow.
Unreal. Second in yards per dropback, second in sacks per attempt, 11.28%. They're sagging the quarterback over 1 out of 10 times he drops back. And teams are only converting 23% of their third downs against them, which is first. So just a ridiculous group under Jim Schwartz, playing a shitload of man coverage, just kind of letting the talent go out there and smack people in the mouth. And I think, kind of the same thing with the Jets. And there's like a few teams that kind of feel like this right now with the Jets, the Browns,
Steelers.
The Steelers. There was one other one I was thinking of that wasn't even the Steelers.
The Giants. I'm kidding.
The Saints. The Saints defense has been great, and Derek Carr and the boys have been underwhelming. Like, there's a few teams like that where you just feel like they can't lose too many games because their defense will just keep them in it. But there's not really high ceiling on the other side of the ball with Jets, Browns. But yeah, the same thing as the Jets. And I think those two are pretty interchangeable for that reason, just because these defenses are so sick. They're able to force turnovers, and they're really stout.
They play
yards allowed.
They play on Thursday night late in the year, and if they're still like on par they are right now, and like still kind of going at it, gritty
Steelers all over again.
Yeah, like if they're like still gritty wins, Jets Browns Thursday night late in the year could be awesome. I'd be like, like that could be so like one of those like 3-3s where it's like fun to watch because the defense 3-3 if the teams suck is like this, just the offenses are just bad. But when it's 3-3 and the defenses are picking the ball off, making sacks, it's so fun. And I feel like that game if there's no like horrible things that happen and the Jets lose 5 of 6 or whatever, which is very possible. I hope that both teams are still late in the year because that game could be so fun to watch.
The score of the game is going to be 5-2.
That's fine by me, man. That's a
might
fun,
not be for everyone, but we would love it.
that's cool.
Next, we're gonna jump into the Nick and Zach Bowl. 1
Ugh.
Giants Bills. We saw in this. Was a weird game, in my opinion. But Zach, we'll start with you. What were your kind of thoughts as the game developed? Like, particularly kind of down the stretch when it was still close and still so low scoring. And what are your kind of takeaways coming out of that game as a Giants fan?
So I was at work for the majority of this game. Nick can vouch. I was in the car on the way home asking him for updates as I was driving, and I got to see the fourth quarter when I got home. Definitely a better game than I had anticipated. We finally outscored a team in the first half. So
What'd you say?
we finally outscored a team in the first half.
Oh yeah, I for some reason I thought you said we finally scored a TD in the first half, and I was like, no, you didn't.
Nope, no, we didn't. Unfortunately.
Yes, I scored a team in the first half.
We outscored you guys the first 3 quarters.
Yeah, the first 3 quarters.
Yeah, so even better. I'll count 3 quarters as a win in my book.
To be fair, the first play, fourth quarter, we scored to make it 7-6. But yeah.
Giants win the game 3-1.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Graham Gano, Tyrod Taylor legacy game finally. Yeah. But yeah, no. All jokes aside, from what I did get to see of the game, the fourth quarter, for lack of a better word, was bullshit in my opinion. Refs played a pretty big factor in that, especially right down the stretch when the NFL saw that the Bills were about to lose to the Giants, and they were like, "Nope, can't have that happen. We're gonna pull some things." But no, that was a blatant PI. Everyone can agree on that. I'm not gonna sit here and complain about it because people miss calls all the time. I'm sure that there were calls on the Giants that were missed earlier in the game.
Yeah, there were.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna sit here and kick myself in the shin for a game I didn't even play in. But
win, right?
I think losing to the Bills by 5 is good given how we've played all year. The defense finally showed flashes of being good. Xavier McKinney was playing a very good game. The offense, Tyrod Taylor looked so much more composed than Daniel Jones has all season. Does it have to do with him being a 13-year vet? Probably, but the O-line seemed to actually want to play for Tyrod Taylor instead of Daniel Jones, which is what kind of worried me in a way.
I wouldn't say that.
That's how it appeared, at least in my opinion.
The O-line was terrible.
Yeah, but they were better than they played for Daniel Jones, which is saying something.
It was brutal.
Yeah,
so not the greatest angle here, but this is the play we're talking about. The last play of the game.
I don't think that's PI. I think that's hold.
He's not making any attempt for the ball. He's tugging on the jersey and just going straight for the ball.
Zach, do you think that's PI or I thought it was holding.
I think it could be either one, to be honest.
He's holding him.
A lot of people were saying it's two penalties in one play.
Well, usually it's either one or the other, but
he's grabbing him the whole time. He doesn't let go, and then he's just not making any attempt for the ball. It's just straight on Waller the whole time.
Yeah, but Zach, I gotta ask you something. Would you say he mauled him?
No, but
no. Okay. You said no to that question. So
he doesn't have to maul him. He just has to impact the play.
No. I'm gonna explain something which is complete BS. But I'm gonna explain something. If there was a pass interference on the play before, and there's like a rule of thumb and with refs, if you cannot call 2 PIs in a row unless he's completely mauled on the second one. So I've been asking people all week, you think he mauled him? No. Well, in that case, it's nothing because refs are not going to call it 2 times in a row unless it's so blatant that it's like, oh, he tackled him before he got the ball. So that's another reason. I know it's BS. I feel so bad for you guys, but like that's another reason why they didn't call it because they usually never call 2 in a row.
That's the thing. He almost made that catch with one hand anyway.
Yeah.
Corporate chills. And then the next down, if I'm not mistaken, Darren Waller didn't go out in a route pattern. He actually blocked on the play after that.
My other thing is like
Wait,
we can agree to disagree on where you rank Saquon as a running back. I easily have him top 5 in the league when fully healthy. We're on the 1 yard line with a top 5 running back in the league. Just slam it through the hole.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like
this Bills defense is probably better against the pass than it is against the run, and the Giants' offense is probably better run blocking than they are pass blocking.
He has the biggest quads I've seen in my life.
He already got stopped at the end of the first half.
Yeah, but still, like you have to give it to your best player on your team in that situation, or at least run like a screen pass or something.
Nah, you don't screen on the one, but
I mean, you can.
Yeah, it's kind of one of like.
I don't know.
Sometimes you feel like people just overthink it, where it's like, oh, they're gonna think we're gonna run, and then so they just do a less effective thing.
Pete Carroll.
Yeah, Pete Carroll.
Seahawks should have ran the ball.
He he must have been all twisted up in his thoughts when he called that.
It's just the fact that he almost made that play anyway. It's just crazy. He tried to be Odell, but it didn't work. I mean, it's not like he can control it. Look at the right arm on him. He can't even get his left arm up.
I mean, it's a bad throw over his head almost.
Yeah, but if he gets that arm up, that's right there. He can.
Yeah, Nick, it seemed like you were a little bit lower on the Bills. Does much of that have to do with this particular performance? Like, what are your takeaways as a Bills fan? Did you see some chinks in the armor a little bit, or is this a little bit more in line with some of the other games this year?
Oh, it's not more in line. This is a weird, but now this is 2 games in a row that they've had 0 points up till like I don't know. They had 7 points with 4 minutes 30 left in the Jags game. They had 7 points, in the fourth quarter of this game. Usually we come out hot, and if they don't come out hot, at least they come out with 3. Then they usually get a stop and a score. That's what I've seen for the last 6 years in the McDermott era. But I don't think there was any chinks in the armor. I mean, obviously, Kaiir Elam is not a very, very serviceable cornerback, and we're gonna have to just kind of deal with it. Trey White, Matt Milano, Daquan Jones, like these are 3. Trey White and Matt Milano have both been All Pros. Matt Milano was on his way to being a 2-time All Pro. Daquan Jones in the top 10. We went over this last week. He's in the top 10 of pressures. That is so like people. By the way, people don't mention Daquan because nobody knows who he is. So they're just like, oh, Trey White, Matt Milano. Like Daquan Jones was a huge part of our success early on. I mean, like,
yeah, the only interior defensive lineman that he's behind in, I think it's pressure rate.
Pressure rate.
Yeah, it might be cumulative pressures, but it's literally like he's behind like Jeffrey Simmons, Grady Jarrett, Quinnen Williams, Dexter. Like he's pretty much right behind those those ridiculously well recognized DPOY candidates.
So yeah, he's in the upper echelons of DTs, and so he's gone. Matt Milano, obviously the best player on the defense, he's gone. Trey White, best corner on the team, he is gone. Like this is ridiculous. Like it really is. Like it's when the Marcus Cousins was like, this is getting ridiculous. Like this is just like, what is this, man? Like, and then you got first of all, Josh got hurt, so now he's gonna have to deal with a AC joint injury. They're throwing to Diggs every single play. I don't know. Like we have Gabe Davis, we have Khalil Shakir, we have Dawson Knox. Apparently we don't, but Well,
and then Kincaid was inactive, right?
Kincaid is in concussion protocol and he's still there. So
yeah,
I don't know what's going on with that. So he's probably going to miss this week as well. So that's cool. Like, and then of course Diggs gets all the touches. Josh threw for 170, and Steph got 100 out of him. So that's like that's too much. I mean, like if you throw for 350 and it's 100 to Diggs, that's great. But and then of course the 2 touchdowns went to Hardy and Quentin Morris. Like what?
Quentin Morris, baby.
Quentin Morris, man, like his last 2 touchdowns both came in red uniforms. I don't know what's going on with that whole thing. Obviously I'm not doing a great job of analyzing the game, but it was a very interesting game. I started watching it downstairs and then I came upstairs because I was like, maybe it's bad luck. The luck did not change. I was like, okay. And yeah, we had a really so Keith said the fourth quarter was bullshit. I thought the fourth quarter was fantastic. They controlled the ball for the entire damn thing. Obviously, the calls at the end were a little weird. The calls in the beginning of the game.
For you guys, it was a good quarter. For us, it was.
Well, if the whole thing was BS with like calls, I would be like, hey, that was just weird. But we had the touchdown drive with 17 plays. That's unbelievable. And the throw he makes to Quentin Morris is just one of one. Like who makes that throw? Like who decides I'm having a tough game? You know, we're in the cold here in Buffalo. We need like a touchdown here, and he's just like, "Hey, that's kind of open, not really." Bang, touchdown! Like, whoa.
Yeah, let me roll to my right and throw it to the inside shoulder.
Yeah,
of a vertical route.
That was.
Oh god, yeah, absolute. Put it in an absolute shoebox.
And I'm not even like praising that. Like I don't know if it's good or bad that like no one makes that throw. Great, yeah, cool, Josh, you can make that throw, but like at some point, like it could have been picked. Like I don't know, dude. And again, like that drive was awesome. He was orchestrating it perfectly. James Cook was running. You know, they were running the ball. They were converting on third downs. He was able to find Diggs like across the body, which was awesome too. So that was great. The plays at the end were obviously a little suspect. As I said, you're not going to throw 2 flags for a PI in a row. So we lucked out, but, you know, everybody lucks out, you know.
John, I didn't realize that we were clicking the comment at the same time. So every time.
Oh, is that what was happening? I thought it was my touchscreen just being like, whatever. That's funny.
It was an interesting game, to say the least. I'm glad they're doing this now, you know, not later in the year. I mean, I kind of say that every year, but I really am. I'm glad that they're able to, like, you know, figure this shit. I mean, nothing's figured out, but I'm glad that they're able to attempt to figure this out now, not go into like these type of games riding high. I thought going into the Jags game after being like the #1 new team after destroying Miami, I don't like that. I don't like being crowned the September champs. Like, who cares? Almost, you know. There were so many times where like the Chiefs and Pats and like they would be like kind of mid to start the year and then boom, they're like, you know, in the Super Bowl. Like, so I'd rather do that than start so hot. So it's a weird year so far. We've blown out 3, like obviously Miami's 1 or 2. Las Vegas has actually been pretty good now. Washington, that people think Washington's pretty good. So we blew out 3 like good teams. And then the Jets stunned us. The Giants just I'm not really sure, and then the Jags, it was a London game. So I don't know. It's been a weird year. That's kind of why I have us a 7 and not in like in the top 5, because 7 I have a nice way of going to 10 if we're continuing to be suspect, but I could also go down to 3 if we decide to play like we did in Miami game. So I think that's a fair ranking for us right now, just because we're so inconsistent. It's a huge roller coaster. The Bills are completely must-watch TV, because whether or not they score 50 or put up 14 against the Giants, it's fun. It's fun to watch. You know, I'll say that.
I mean, we'll see you guys in the Super Bowl, so it's fine. But
what?
I said we'll see you guys in the Super Bowl, so it's fine. But
well, yeah.
Rematch 1988.
Yeah.
1990 maybe.
And Nick, I do not think Daniel Jones would have won that game. I think if Daniel Jones played, it would have been like 31-10, just because I think Tyrod being there changed a lot about the game. I think
that's what I'm saying. He was like composed. He actually seemed like he wanted to like be there. You know what I'm saying?
Tyrod was actually really impressive. He started, you know, so he was getting sacks. he started getting the ball out much quicker. He was much more composed. Buffalo is a place that he's played many times. I think if Jones played there, he would have looked shocked and just uneven. And I think
it would have been cool to see Josh Allen versus Josh Almid, but
I'm just saying, like, Tyrod being there actually helped the Giants a whole lot. He's able to kind of compose the team. Listen, guys, I've been before. Dable, a guy who taught Josh everything he knows, essentially. He's on the other side, so obviously he's going to know what Josh's tendencies are. So it's a lot easier for a team like that to play us tough. But I'll take the win. We're 4-2, so hopefully Miami loses to the Eagles this week.
Dable was probably just like, watch Josh's eyes, and that's exactly where he's throwing the ball.
No, Josh does not do that ever. But
he did up until what was it, week 3 for the part of his career. Defenders even said like he would lock onto someone and go to his first option. That's also Daniel Jones's problem.
So 5 years ago, yeah, you're right, man.
No, I'm saying even like up to now, like he was still doing that. That's why he's easier to defend in the playoffs than some of these other quarterbacks.
Week 3 this year.
I'm saying up to from the beginning of his career up to about week 3 of this year, and then he finally started to change something.
Who said that?
Me.
Oh.
Just from observation.
I completely disagree with you, but okay.
John, what's your thought?
That's okay.
All right. We're just going to go ahead and jump to Stroudy with a chance.
All right, man.
Stroudy with a chance. Listen, I mean, I don't think he like telegraphs everything. Maybe he does sometimes, but he's also one of those guys who makes like ridiculous crossbody throws that like nobody would really anticipate. I guess I could see that in, just kind of his 3-step drop kind of game. But the way he navigates the pocket, I feel like it's always coming out of nowhere. We're going with the ball. At least,
If you said that he was like kind of looking down receivers or cornerbacks, like receivers in like his rookie season, I'd be like, yeah, he was doing a little bit. Like since 2020, he completely changed that, and up to week 3 this year, that's just. I mean,
maybe that's what maybe that's what happens a little bit in the worst games.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe that's what we kind of saw in the Jets game a little bit, but
that's why his turnover count gets a little like is above average. That's where I was getting at.
No, his turnover rate is high, but he also leads the league in most total touchdowns in the league. So
yeah, he can be a little game to game. It's like you probably get one dud out of every 6, and the other 5 he's just absolutely dialed.
Yeah.
But somebody who has also been absolutely dialed is CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
First pick.
Should have been the first pick. I don't know why he wasn't. And again, I don't think it would be that much different in Carolina. But what he's doing in Houston with I think you're really splitting hairs one way or the other if you're trying to make the argument that the weapons he has in Houston are much better than the pass catchers in Carolina. I mean, yeah, I like Nico Collins a lot. Tank Dell's been good. Robert Woods. But then you look at and you're like Adam Thielen, who's been fine. DJ Chark, Terrace Marshall, Laviska Shenault. Those are like relatively comparable sets of pass catchers. Like I don't see a huge discrepancy there. I think I like the Texans O-line a little bit more. And maybe the D'Amico culture has a big effect on that, but you gotta think it would have been better for Carolina to take him, just with how poised he's looked. Something came out about how Bryce has been having to deal with a lot more pre-snap decision making than some other rookie QBs, things like that. But I don't know. It looks like a lot of people were scared off by a probably bullshit standardized test score during the draft process. I don't even remember. What is it called? The C2? It's like a what the hell is it? You guys know what I'm talking about? The test they do in the draft process. It's like the
I have no clue.
God, what was it called? Well, anyway,
Well,
Hmm.
we'll
scored
just
low on some. It was some cognition test, essentially. Um, his cognition looks fine. His anticipation's been great. He's been really aggressive over the middle, and yeah, hitting guys like Nico Collins on these in breakers, making the most out of another rookie in Tank Dell. Damian Pierce hasn't gotten the run game going to the extent you thought he might. The protection's been shoddy, but CJ Stroud's been really consistent, really poised. Another big win this week, and there haven't been, and he also hasn't been making mistakes. Like it's not like you're just seeing these really good flashes, and you're like, wow, that was a great pick. He's going to be great. He's fantastic like right now. And just his like pocket awareness, some of the anticipation on some of these throws is top tier. I mean, but it's before receivers are hitting their breaks. He's getting the ball out, and it's there right when they turn their head around. I mean, he's ripped some seams to one to Nico Collins actually, but to the tight ends as well, that are just ballsy throws, and he's just he's putting them in absolute shoe boxes. The Wonderlic was the old one. This S2. It's S2. He had a low S2 score. I think they started doing that like 2 years ago. They switched it to S2 or something like that. But yeah, it was formerly the Wonderlic that they did for the draft process. But he's been so awesome. They're 3-3 with kind of a chance to win this division. Like I like the Jags. We all like the Jags, but they're not world beaters necessarily. They could very easily falter. They could get a little bit of injury trouble, and potentially leave that door open. I really, especially preseason, I didn't see any of these other three teams in the AFC South, even like breathing down Jacksonville's necks. I thought they could probably finish 9-8 and still pretty comfortably win the division. It's looking like the Colts and Titans will be that bad, especially with Anthony Richardson probably out for the year. I like the Titans defense, but they just don't really have it. The Texans look like a complete team that's just kind of decent. So it could give some people some problems down the stretch. Just wanted to give Stroud a big shout out. We haven't talked much about him to this point, but he's lighting it up, and I think when we look back at the end of this season, it's going to be one of those things where it's like we should have believed it right away. It's kind of one of those things when a rookie comes on and you're like, well, that was a pretty good game. Let's see some more of it. Or, oh, this is a pretty hot start. Let's see some more of it. I think he's going to keep this up. And I think he'll far and away by the end of the season look like the best rookie quarterback. But and that's mostly because Anthony Richardson will miss some of the season. But I think even when both were healthy, I think Stroud was a lot sharper. Hadn't committed a turnover until this Saints game that he still willed them to victory in. So love Stroud. Love you. Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. It was just coming off my screen. It was like a random ad on another window that just started going. Sorry about that, folks. Very high production value here on Necessary Roughness. Last thing I wanted to get to, guys, is kind of a bonus game. Cowboys Chargers. We talked about Jets Philly already, but I wanted to briefly mention before we get out of here that was the first Jets win of all time against Philadelphia. I think they've only played like 11 or 12 times, but
I think they're 1-12 now.
Yeah, that was just a wild stat. But as two guys who probably don't like the Jets, I thought I should bring that up while we're here. Other one, yeah. So Cowboys Chargers. I told you guys I've been a little under the weather. I missed a little bit of this game. I watched the first 3 quarters almost all the way through. Passed out in the 4th, and then woke up to a lot of discourse about does Herbert have that quote unquote dog in him? All kinds of things like that. Praising what looked like a really mediocre performance from Dak Prescott. I saw a lot of that. Micah Parsons sounds like he stayed electric down the stretch. But assuming you guys caught the end of that game, break down kind of your thoughts on it, takeaways. Do you feel any differently about either of these teams after this matchup?
I mean, it lost me a good amount of money. We live in a world where Dak Prescott had more rushing yards than Tony Pollard. Just want to throw that out there.
Awesome.
But aside from that, I don't know. I expected it to be a shootout, really. It wasn't really a shootout at all. Dak goes on these periods where it's like, oh, I'm going to play really mid. And then like yesterday, right? Yeah. He throws for over 270, plays a pretty good game by his standards, or any standards for that matter. I just really don't know. Like, the Cowboys' run defense is just insane, and it's been proving that basically all year, except for, Christian McCaffrey. But he's a top 1 running back in the league, so I don't expect anyone to be able to really guard him. Austin Eckler wasn't able to do much on the rushing end. He was more playing as like a receiving back. Keenan was putting up numbers. He was able to find his spots. I don't know. I don't really feel any differently about either team. I just expect it to be a shootout, like in the 30s for each team, but it just never really got there for me.
For me, I mean, the Cowboys are a team that now Mike McCarthy they got embarrassed against San Fran. I think that he kind of took the reins and was like, "Yo, let's let the Chargers make the mistake." You know what I mean? Like, Brandon Staley, time and again, has made the mistake that has cost them the game. I think that's what McCarthy did. I think he outcoached Staley in this game. Dak, he said, let's not make any brash decisions. There was 8 seconds left in the first half. The end of the first half, a lot of people have talked about it, and they could have, they had a timeout. They could have taken a shot in the end zone. They decided to just kick the field goal, be safe, don't do anything stupid. Take the safe options. It was a very safe game for Dallas, and maybe some fans are a little skeptical of that. And Dominique Foxworth was not happy about it. He was talking this morning about how that doesn't win the Super Bowl, but there's other guys like Dan Graziano I agree with. Like he was saying, like you got to get to the Super Bowl, and if you're going to make dumb decisions, then you're never going to get there. So make your plays when it counts. And I think that the defense did that. I think that they were able to, after Herbo was able to get that touchdown to tie it, and that fan went crazy. I know we all seen that. Then they got the field goal and, pick off Dak. So Dallas, I said, if they're not going to beat San Fran, no one's going to really take them seriously at the end, like, because that's the team you're chasing, right? If you're chasing a team and you lose, period, they lose by 32, whatever they lost. If you lose, period, I'd be like, well, you're still chasing them. They lost by that much. You're not chasing them. They're in another stratosphere. Obviously, now you look a week later, it's a week-to-week league. Now they lose and y'all win, so I guess you can look a little bit better. But at the end of the day, you're still chasing San Francisco, and until you show you can beat them, I mean, I don't really care about y'all. For the Chargers side of it, I think that at 2-4, or they're 2-3, they can go to 2-4 if they lose in Kansas City next week. So I think that that's a big, big game for them. I think this is a divisional game. They need to be on their P's and Q's, because if they go to 2-4, Chiefs are 6-1, division's locked up, and then you guys in this tough AFC are gonna have to figure. First of all, you're 2-4, so that's already a bad look. So now you got a lot of confidence that it goes out the window. I don't know why they traded J.C. Jackson. I was like, wait, aren't you guys contending? So now he's gone. So now they got to deal with Michael Davis, who hasn't been great. So it's kind of a weird team. I think that, Herbo might just not be very clutch. That was a pretty bad pick he threw at the end of the game there to Stephon Gilmore. But, this is a really big week for them. I think that if they can get back and somehow beat Kansas City, they get right back on the horse, and then they have some easier games coming up. So I think that this is a make or break week for LA.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you too. And now all of a sudden, we were talking all offseason how it felt like they were kind of reloaded now with drafting Quentin Johnston, Mike and Keenan coming back healthy. We were like, hey, this is going to be a great year. Herbert's finally going to have weapons. He'll have his guys healthy. Mike Williams goes down. And now all of a sudden it feels like they should be in the market for a receiver, just to add some more to that group. And that didn't you always worry about injury possibilities with guys like Keenan and Mike, veteran guys with a little bit of history there. But it seems crazy to say that receiver is actually a need for this team, given the talent they have on the roster in theory. You know what I mean? So it's a tough spot for them. And of course, this is the worst time to have to go play KC. I just came off a week where my Vikings were absolutely reeling, and then they had to go play KC. It was at home, and they played them tough. But it's just a game that you don't give them a high probability of winning. And we look like the last couple of years of Chiefs-Chargers games have been these crazy shootouts, and those two going back and forth. But now, this season in particular, I think the Chiefs have really separated themselves on the defensive side of the ball from what LA has been able to roll out there. Despite the Khalil Mack 6-sack game, Joey Bosa continues to get banged up and hasn't been quite as electrifying as he has been in the past. You just mentioned the J.C. Jackson thing just did not work out. They cut ties first year back from the injury, and they cut ties after, I guess, 4 games with which they were not satisfied. Michael Davis, who had a great year last year, like you mentioned, hasn't been great this year. So it's a tough spot, and Eric Kendricks, former Viking, hasn't been great in his first year over there. But on the other side, KC's defense is really humming. So it's going to be a huge, huge challenge for Justin Herbert and the guys to keep pace, I think, in this game. If they're able to, it's going to be super, super fun to watch. But, it's not as easy to – and they kept finding ways to win even last year and the year prior. But it's not as easy to kind of keep pace with the Chiefs as it was the last couple of years. They some of that young talent is really kind of being realized on that team. They're 2 first-round picks from last year. A couple other guys they found on day 3, Jalen Watson.
Was it? Yeah.
Is that the receiver or the corner?
No. Justin Watson's the receiver. Jalen Watson's the corner.
Jalen Watson is the corner. Yeah, that kid was great. 7th round find.
Yeah.
And then, like I mentioned, the linebackers at the top of the show, the D-line's been playing well. So, that's what worries me about the Chargers. And this was a game that was so winnable. That, all 3 of their losses just feel like a high opportunity cost, just with how close they were. And, you've only got now 11 games left. You're gonna wish you had those ones back that were kind of in your grasp against pretty good teams for the most part, even. But it's just one of those teams that, and it's honestly been the Chargers of the last several decades that just doesn't really ever seem to hit its ceiling. It doesn't seem to ever get anything clicking all at the same time.
Yeah.
Like even those LT, Antonio Gates, Phillip Rivers years, it was like it never really lined up for them.
Yeah.
When they had their best year, it was like, well, eat shit. The Patriots are undefeated.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, you're in the division with the best team in football or the kind of the current dynasty in action. And you're just always going to have to play them twice a year. You're going to have to figure out how to keep up, and it just hasn't worked yet as high as we've been on their collection of talent. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we just mentioned her.
Yeah.
She's been getting interviewed like crazy, too.
Yeah, Pat McAfee.
Apparently, there's a picture of her doing the same thing over a Vikings, like in Vikings gear. Did you see that?
I don't know if that's the same person, but if it is,
I mean, if it's not, it's kind of racist. But if it is,
I don't know how I feel about that.
if it is, she's just got to be like an Eric Kendricks groupie.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't know. I don't really know.
Yeah, everyone's like, oh, people are saying like you're fake, you're a plant, you're a robot, whatever. And then Pat McAfee was like, people think you're getting paid to do it. She was like, I wish I could be getting paid to do it. Like,
oh yeah,
because they are trying to get those robots in there in the stands.
She's gonna be watched like every Charger game. Every time if like she's there and they score, they're definitely cutting to her.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool for her.
Oh, Lee. What's up, Lee? Thanks for coming by. How can a defensive coach let that talent commit so many penalties? Is this Chargers here?
There was a over under for the amount of penalties that would happen in that game. I think 20 penalties or 25, it was one of the two, was plus 25,000, meaning you had to bet $100 to make 25,000. That hit, which is just insane with the amount of penalties in that game. It's absolutely absurd.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is rough. And it's one of those things where, like, his yeah, exactly. His yeah, well, they're throwing a flag every time Derwin James breathes on a guy. He's been fined for some things that, in my opinion, are just football plays. But yeah, for other things as well, he's getting flagged. It's like Staley's seat has to be so hot right now. You already scapegoated Joe Lombardi last year after the 27-0 collapse. And yeah, you're this defensive-minded coach who comes over here after being the play caller on a Super Bowl winning defense for the Rams.
Yeah.
And then you come to find out it's not as easy to run that same scheme when you have no Aaron Donald and you have no Jalen Ramsey. So, there was a lot of faith in him to sort of piece together what they had, because they do have some top end talent at some really high leverage positions with Mack and Bosa. That's a great duo. Asante Samuel's awesome. Derwin James, that Swiss Army knife in the defensive backfield, is great, but he's just not been able to get them, especially, this is outside of even his head coaching duties, where he's made some really questionable decisions as well. So yeah, I'm right there with you, Lee. I love the Chargers. I still do. I can't quit them. I want them to be good so bad. But it's just,
they have a QB who would be considered a top 5 QB if he was on any other like top team.
Yeah, the stars just haven't aligned for them. Most expensive defense in the league. That sounds about right, especially just between what those two edge guys are making. Sebastian Joseph Day still, I think, $9 million or so. Kenneth Murray, second contract. Kendricks, Derwin, big deal. It's rough. And then, the big money out to J.C. Jackson. That experiment's already over. That's wild. I think it was like 4 years, 90?
I think it was 580.
5 years, 80?
Yeah, which is so crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then to I mean, you've got to be eating. I haven't even checked over the cap since he was traded, but you've got to be eating a pretty significant dead cap hit for all the guarantees. Those get accelerated when you move on without having paid them yet. So it's got to be a pretty big dead cap hit. They must have really wanted to move on from him. It's crazy. But go Chargers. Hopefully they get good sometime. That's all we've got for you guys tonight. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are trying to grow this channel so we have the ability to bring you guys even more content and have some more fun doing what we love. And that's just talking ball. So if you're interested in hearing us talk about any other stuff, you can check out the Bounce on Thursday nights right here on the channel with the guy to my right, your left probably. Zach Keebler and Kev and James are talking hoops on Thursdays. We've also got Another Damn Fantasy podcast on Wednesdays. Sportsbook Junkies is moving to Fridays. Is that correct?
This week it's tomorrow at 7, but we're still debating about what we're doing with that.
Sportsbook Junkies is sometime on the channel as well for all the betting tips and tricks. And check out our other channel, Dweeb, with a capital or a lowercase d and then a capital D, WEEB, to hear some of us from Bite Size talking about a bunch of other crap that you might find interesting. But thanks again for tuning in, especially if you stuck around this long. We really appreciate having you. And those who jumped into the chat to join the conversation, always much appreciated. Thanks again, guys. We'll be right back here, same time next week, Tuesday at 8 Central. Wrapping up week 7. Looking forward to week 8. And we'll see, what kind of pops. We didn't go through games to watch this episode, but we do have Dolphins Eagles, which will obviously be a fun one. And we'll be breaking them all down next week. Thanks again, guys. Nick, Zach, take it easy. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace, boys.